So earlier this year, I posted a video about me evicting a tenant. I didn't expect any results on that, any sort of comments. And much to my surprise, I got over 15 million views on TikTok, millions more on other social media platforms such as Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook. And I didn't expect any of this to happen. And I'll tell you this much, the story got so convoluted. It was pretty funny, but I'll be honest with you. At first, I was a little bit taken aback. I was taken aback by how fast it went viral. And also, number two, I was taken aback of how much of the negative commentary and people making decisions about me and who I am as if they lived with me. This was the funny thing. So let me tell you something about this story. Initially, when I got this deal, there was a worker of mine who came to me and spoke to me that him and his wife had this property that was being given to them by the grandfather, the wife's grandfather. I tried to talk them through it and tell them, hey, listen, why don't you just try to keep it? It makes more sense. They didn't have the know-how nor the means to actually fix the property, because what was clear was that the property needed a lot of rehab, as you can see in the video. And so I said to them, once we worked out that first option, that they weren't able to keep the property, I said, so how can I help you? I ended up buying the property off of the grandfather. And so the grandfather had what they call a reverse mortgage. And so when I bought the property, I bought it subject to. For those of you who don't know what subject to is, that I bought the property, title changes name, but the loan stays in place, okay? So it's just keep it very simple. So I bought the property, title changed names, I own the property, but the mortgage stayed in place. That was the plan, to rehab the property from the very beginning. However, when I closed on the house, there were two family members who did not want to move. And that's where a lot of people didn't understand this. And people say, I got the tea and they know all this and that. If you actually search in public records, I dare you to go search in public records, you will see that there was an eviction there. And the reason that happened was because they refused after closing. So imagine this, you buy a house, you pay for it, you close on it, and then you get the keys. Well, in this case, I didn't even get the keys to the house because the homeowner that was selling you the house, some of the family members said, I'm not moving. I don't care. I am not moving. What I learned in life is you get a lot more with honey than you get with vinegar. So I started to talk to them. I said, please, what do you need to do? You need me to help you move out? I'll give you your first, I'll give you your last, I'll get a moving truck. I tried to understand their situation. They were older gentlemen, and I tried to understand their situation, but ultimately I had to come down to and say, listen, you can't live here for free. They were unwilling to pay rent, because at that point, they grew up in the house. They believed that they were entitled to the house, but they weren't the owners of the house. Their father sold me the house. And once that was all done, they had to move on, and they were still so attached because they were used to living for free. They were used to living in the house for free. They were used to not paying for anything. They didn't even have water on at the house. So you got to understand the circumstances that there was. So understanding with them that I needed to help them out, I encouraged them. I talked to other family members. I said, hey, what can you do? Can you house him? Can you move them out? Can you take them in? I guided them to certain government programs. I told them different things. And a couple of weeks passed by, a month passes by, almost 2 months pass by, and they're still not moving. They keep telling me, yes, they're gonna move. And then when I pass by, they're ducking me. And so I'm like, okay, I need to get this house rehabbed and get it fixed. And so when you start seeing things in the video, that you start seeing the mess that they left, yes, that was the mess that they left. They left the mess there. And so I had to start getting everything prepared. And what happens is this: when someone comes into a property, whether it be by, in this case, a sale and they never left, or they stay in your property and they don't have a lease, it's called an unlawful detainer. And so I needed to actually get the property back. In that moment, they become tenants. So even though that they lived there before that, even though they grew up there and their dad owned the house, the moment that I owned the house and they didn't have a lease in place and I had to evict them, under the law, they became a tenant. So just to clear up, because there's a lot of confusion saying I was never a landlord. They were saying that I was a bad landlord, that I was this and that. The truth of the matter is this: the father owned the property, the sons lived there, they moved on, the dad moved on, we closed on the house, he got his money, and then at the end of the day, they decided to stay in there, and then that's how they became my tenants. Hopefully that's clear. And so when we were going through the process, they were not willing to pay rent. They wanted to stay there and live for free. And I was like, well, I don't do this. You know, I don't do this for a living to let people stay in my house for free. And so people have different opinions about landlords, and granted, it's fine, but there's a place for landlords in every community, in every city, where, you know, if you can't afford to buy a house, the only other option is to rent. And so I was not in the position to keep this property to rent it out. And so that was never the goal. And so when they became my tenants, then I had to go through the process of evicting them. Now the eviction takes some time. This eviction took me almost 2 months to get them out. So you gotta remember, it was 1 month before they closed. So it was almost 3 months before we were able actually to get them out of the house. And even then they fought it and making up lies, saying that they needed some time. And I granted them enough time. And even the judge said, you know what? This is not something that you need any more time. You're just playing games here. And he granted the eviction. And so what ended up happening was that I talked to a family member and I told them, I was like, can we work something out so that we don't end up being at insult to injury to the tenants? And so basically, long story short, I was able to get the keys to the house, and what you saw in the video is what they left in the house. All the furniture, all that other stuff. And so immediately we started demoing the house. So for those of you that were wondering if it was a rehab and if I evicted my tenants, yes, I did evict them. Yes, they were tenants. They became tenants because they never left. And did I rehab the house? Absolutely. And I end up rehabbing the house, end up selling the house, and there's a happy homeowner right now. And so hopefully this brings into clarification about the things that happen. And as I said to you before, I never thought that the video would actually go viral. And so some of the crazy things that resulted from that video was that I was getting death threats, got a lot of keyboard warriors, and a lot of people with a lot of opinions. So one of the things I learned is that there was a lot of people that have no understanding of real estate, and they think that real estate's really easy. And I challenge those people that put all those comments: buy one house, rent it out, have your tenant not pay or destroy your property. And then after you experience that, then come talk to me. Because until you have that, until you understand that, until you know what it's to be like on this side of the thing, and think that all it is that I just sit at home and don't do any work, yeah, it's very challenging. Everything is talked about in theory, but in reality, when you have to deal with the different personalities, when you have to deal with the different ways that people manage their money, when you have to deal with how people destroy your property, right? And when you have to deal with people being inconsistent and not paying their bills, and you're dependent on that, so that way you can pay your bills, then you understand that it's a lot of work. So hopefully that clarifies the backstory. Let me know what your thoughts are. Did you watch the video? What makes sense to you? Let me know, comment below.